The wind over the desert carried the sound of bells. Not metal ones, but the faint ring inside the skull that comes when a silence is too pure to endure. In that place, where the sand had swallowed whole cities and even memory itself seemed fossilized, a traveler named Saren arrived with nothing but a torn satchel and a piece of parchment scorched at its edges. It was said the parchment once belonged to a forbidden council, the Order of the Living Flame, who had gathered before their destruction to hide a teaching too powerful to survive in a world built on obedience. Their words weren't written in any language known, but each stroke of ink hummed faintly, like the trace of a frequency only the soul could hear. Saren wasn't a prophet, only a weary scholar who had seen temples rise and fall in the name of gods who never answered. His nights were filled with dreams of a woman with no face, calling him through curtains of fire. She whispered, "The truth you read was erased. But the silence remembers." When he reached the ruins of Nahar, the city said to be built above the first well of creation, he found the remnants of the old council's chamber buried under glassy ash. Broken idols lay beside burnt scrolls, and on a cracked wall, he saw what looked like a circle intersected by a single vertical line. Beneath it, a faint inscription. "Those who see the world as two shall never behold the one." He knelt and pressed his palm to the mark. The sand beneath him shivered. A pulse of light moved up through his arm, and suddenly the air felt alive, humming, vibrating, full of quiet intelligence. For a moment, every grain of dust seemed to turn toward him, like a congregation of eyes. The voice of the faceless woman returned. The teaching is not in the words but in the gap between them. To hear it, you must unlearn sound. That night, Saren made a fireless camp and opened the parchment. Under the dim starlight, the ink began to rearrange itself, forming new patterns. He realized they weren't letters at all but geometric symbols, spirals within circles, eyes within eyes. The arrangement reminded him of something his grandmother had once whispered before her death: the first god was not a being but a pattern. He copied the sigils into the sand. As he drew the last line, a deep vibration resonated in his chest, like a cord plucked from the center of the earth. His heartbeat aligned with it. The dunes around him rippled as if the world itself had taken a breath. Then, silence. Not emptiness, but a dense, luminous stillness that filled him with both terror and reverence. In that stillness, he understood what the lost gospel had meant. Divinity wasn't something one reached through worship, but something already humming beneath the skin. The priests had destroyed the teaching because it dissolved every hierarchy. He wept, not out of sorrow, but because the boundary between his tears and the sand had vanished. Everything, grief, dust, breath, memory, was one shimmering field. The line and circle burned faintly under the stars. When dawn came, Saren's eyes had changed. The irises reflected not light but movement, like two galaxies spinning. He packed the parchment and continued walking east, guided not by sun or compass but by the rhythm in his chest. Somewhere in the unseen, the old order stirred. Whispers traveled through dreams of scattered seekers: the seal has been reopened. For days, Saren followed the pulse within him. It was like a second heartbeat, not his own, but something vast, echoing through his bones. The deserts gave way to stone valleys, then to forests where the trees grew in spirals, their branches weaving geometric halos against the sky. Every night he dreamed of the circle and the line, now burning brighter in his mind. He began to hear whispers in the rustle of the leaves, phrases that weren't spoken aloud but impressed directly onto his thoughts. One voice said, "The silence you found is the seed. But the fruit lies beyond sound." In a misted ravine, he met Lyra, a solitary woman tending a spring that glowed faintly under moonlight. Her hair, silver as water, flowed as if moved by a current unseen. Saren felt the hum within his chest align with hers instantly, like two frequencies resonating. She watched him quietly before saying, "The desert leaves its mark on the ones chosen to remember." He showed her the parchment. Lyra didn't read it, she only traced the air above it, eyes half closed. "These sigils are fragments of the original word," she murmured. "Before language divided heaven from earth. Do you feel it moving beneath your skin?" He nodded, trembling. "It's like being watched from inside." "That watcher is you," she said. "The part of you that never fell asleep." For weeks, Lyra taught him the art of inner stillness, not meditation, but unfolding, the act of letting each thought dissolve back into the field that birthed it. She spoke of the single eye, the ancient practice of collapsing the inner duality, the seeing and the seen, into one awareness. The process was painful. Saren's mind rebelled, clawing to reassert boundaries. He saw flashes of his childhood, guilt, and shame swirl into grotesque faces whispering, "You are not worthy." Lyra only said, "Let them burn. What screams is only the shadow dying." One evening, as they sat beside the luminous spring, she guided him through the ritual. "Close the eyes of the flesh. Let the inner eye open. Let it look where no image can exist." Saren obeyed. The world inverted, sound became sight, light became texture. He felt his own thoughts like drifting clouds, and for the first time, he realized he was not them. Beneath all motion was an infinite, unmoving witness, calm, vast, and ancient. He had no name in that place, no history. Then something broke. His sense of self, that thin membrane separating observer and observed, dissolved. He saw himself not as a man but as a flicker of awareness embedded within a cosmic network of luminous threads. Each thread pulsed with life, not individual lives, but one life seen through countless windows. When he opened his physical eyes again, Lyra was smiling faintly. "Now you've seen the fracture," she said. "Next comes the remembering." In the days that followed, Saren saw the world differently. Every leaf, every drop of water reflected the same geometry he'd seen on the parchment, circles within circles, endlessly repeating. He noticed that when he stopped naming things, they shimmered with a hidden light, as if eager to reveal their true form. One night, a storm tore through the forest. Lightning flashed across the sky, and in the thunder's pause, he heard a low voice, not Lyra's, but something older. "The eye you opened will close again unless it learns to see through death." When the storm ended, Lyra was gone. In her place, he found a small fragment of obsidian carved with the same line and circle symbol. Beneath it, etched into the earth, were her final words, "Follow the light backward." He held the stone tightly. A deep fear rose within him, fear of losing her, fear of dissolving further, fear that the thing he had awakened was not enlightenment but madness. Yet somewhere inside that fear was also a quiet certainty, he was nearing the threshold. Days later, standing atop a mountain ridge, Saren lifted the obsidian toward the sun. The black stone caught the light and refracted it into countless golden rays, forming a brief, radiant halo around his hand. The pulse inside his chest quickened. He felt it calling him somewhere beyond mountains, beyond memory. He whispered, "Show me where the one hides." The wind answered, carrying the sound of bells once again, not outside but within his mind. He knew then that the final journey would not be of feet or maps, but of consciousness itself, through the portal of the single eye into the boundless field from which all creation had once dreamed itself awake. Saren descended the mountain in silence. The world below seemed thinner now, as if every shape and color were only the shadow of a deeper light pressing through. Villages bustled, traders shouted, children ran, yet behind their motion he could see threads of gold, weaving all beings into one vast tapestry that pulsed with the same rhythm as his heart. He tried to speak of it once. To a monk guarding a roadside shrine, he said, "Do you not feel the hum beneath everything? The light inside your breath?" The monk smiled politely, thinking him delirious from the climb. So Saren learned to keep the silence within him, letting the world speak in its own forgetful way. In the city of Oran, he found a hidden temple built into the bones of an ancient cathedral. Its walls were covered in veils of dust and murals of saints whose eyes had been deliberately scraped away. In the center of the hall stood an altar of obsidian, marked by the circle and line. As he approached, a group of veiled initiates appeared. Their leader, an old man with iridescent pupils, bowed slightly. "You carry the resonance," he said. "We felt it before you entered." Saren unrolled the parchment. The symbols burned faintly, rearranging themselves again, as if alive. The old man touched the glowing ink with trembling fingers. "This is not ink," he whispered. "It is a mirror. It shows whoever reads it the structure of their own soul." The initiates began to chant, slow, circular tones that seemed to spiral around him. Their song wasn't music, it was geometry turned to sound. The altar's surface rippled like water. Saren placed the fragment of Lyra's obsidian atop it, and the two artifacts fused seamlessly, forming a complete sigil, the circle, the line, and within them a radiant eye. A door of light unfolded in the air. Not opening outward, but inward, like space itself was folding around a single point. Saren hesitated, remembering Lyra's warning, the eye must learn to see through death. He understood now. To pass through meant leaving behind everything that called itself I. He stepped forward. Instantly the world collapsed into pure sound, not noise, but the harmonic language of existence. Every thought he had ever held became a tone, every fear a vibration. He saw himself multiply into infinite reflections, each one a different life, farmer, child, thief, saint, all bound by the same luminous thread. Then came the void, absolute and unmoving. In that silence, there was no Saren, no seeker, no teaching. Only awareness aware of itself. It was like standing inside the thought of God before the first word was spoken. When he emerged, the temple was gone. Or perhaps it had never existed outside of him. He stood in a plane of golden light where time didn't move, and before him appeared Lyra, or something wearing her form. "You crossed the portal," she said. "But you must return, or the circle remains incomplete." He looked down and saw that his hands were transparent, threads of energy flowing through them. "If I return," he said, "will I forget?" "You will remember differently," she replied. "As the world remembers the ocean through rain." She placed her palm over his heart. The light between them condensed into a single spark, sinking into his chest. "Carry it quietly," she said. "You are not the message, you are the echo." When Saren opened his eyes again, he was back among the living. The parchment lay folded beside him, now blank. The line and circle had vanished from his skin. But something had changed in the air. Wherever he walked, strangers paused and felt, if only for a second, that same hum, that same trembling awareness stirring beneath the noise of their thoughts. He became a wanderer again, crossing villages and ruins, saying little, leaving behind no writings. Some said he healed the mad by listening, that he spoke to trees and stones. Others called him dangerous, a heretic of stillness. But Saren never claimed to know anything. He simply carried the resonance forward. One evening, as he sat beside a river reflecting the dying sun, he whispered to the water, "The one never leaves. It only forgets itself in form." The ripples shimmered, echoing back his words like a hymn. And for a brief moment, even the wind seemed to remember. If you have reached this point, you've already felt it, the quiet pull behind the story. Saren's journey isn't about another world or some secret brotherhood lost in time. It's a reflection of our own silent remembering, that unshakable intuition whispering that there is more to life than the noise, that something vast and luminous has always been here, waiting beneath thought. The circle and the line are not relics of forgotten mystics, they are the simplest map of awakening. The circle, everything that exists, endlessly repeating. The line, consciousness piercing through illusion, reuniting what was divided. Together, they form the eye of truth, the same one that watches from within your chest every time you fall still enough to listen. Like Saren, each of us carries a fragment of that original light. We wander through deserts of distraction, through doctrines and doubts, until something cracks open, a silence, a loss, a strange dream we cannot explain. And in that crack, the hum begins again. That's where the real journey starts. If this story resonated with you, let it breathe for a moment. Don't rush to analyze or name it. Just notice the pulse beneath your ribs, the space between your thoughts. That's where the one hides, not in temples or texts, but in your own still awareness. Every seeker must one day realize that enlightenment isn't a destination, it's a homecoming. The divine never waited for you to arrive, it waited for you to stop leaving. So as the light fades on Saren's path, perhaps you'll look at your own differently, not as a struggle toward heaven, but as a remembrance that you've never left it. If this story stirred something within you, consider subscribing to the channel. Share it with someone who walks quietly, someone who might be listening for the same hum. Each time you do, you help awaken another spark, and that is how the circle completes itself again. Thank you for walking through the silence with me. Until next time, stay awake, stay kind, and keep listening.